Hello. I'm assuming this is probably going to be one of my last communications, which is good. I can tell when certain revelations come to you that you're kind of reaching the stop put. So, in the midst of everything I was doing today, what had come to me is that when you look at the message of Christ and you start understanding everything, and what's been going through my history in terms of YouTube is On Point Preparedness. He's been attacking the law. So how simply following the Torah doesn't get you there. And understanding what I understand about the split, we had the law with Hammurabi. So when the initial split happened, Satan thought he could control the world by law. And we know that eye for an eye was the original principle, and it didn't work. It just led to unrighteousness. People forgot about God, and what they did is they lived for themselves, much like they live today. And eventually God destroyed everything. He found one. Remember, he found one that was still righteous. That was Noah. But go back to it all. If you just live by the eye for an eye code, eventually everybody just lives for themselves. That's all they care about. Getting dinner, getting this, that, and the other. Eventually they forget, why am I here? Why was I created? And the law itself cannot save you. So when God came and gave Moses the law and basically brought it down to the principles of what Jesus said, love God with all your heart and love man as yourself. Do not covet, do not commit adultery. You can go through the complicated versions of it. The whole point is understanding what did Leviticus tell us and why, and then you can relate it to what Jesus said. And if you try to understand it from those principles, then you can understand why the law was what the law was. But the law doesn't make us righteous. When Adam and Eve bit that apple, the curse was brought upon us. Now, the curse is a deep thought because Satan's deception was, you won't surely die. But given where we're at between the tree of good and evil, because we're still living today, let's be honest, how does the curse get reversed? Now, the other side of the coin, and you have to remember in theodicy, there's good and evil. So there's people like me and you who worship in the church, and there's people who worship in the church Satan. And their big thing is doing rituals, and it's trying to get everybody to buy into this big ritual, which is pretty easy to do with television. You get these narratives, and you get everybody to buy into these narratives, and eventually it all comes to a collapse in its own right. But moving away from that, how do you get away from the curse? Now, God's plan was pretty simple. What you do is you adhere to a law of love, the fruits of the Spirit, which there need be no law. And eventually you have your own child. And you basically take on death yourself through your son, through your creation. And by taking on death, you take ownership of death, and then you can conquer death. And that's what Christ represents. Hence, there's no way I get back to the Father unless Christ brings me back. And the more I've read Revelation, the more I realize if you're not in the rapture and you're not part of Christ's blood, you might be resurrected, but you're probably not going to be in New Jerusalem. And the harsh reality of it is that whether we want to admit it or not, we're all liars, cheaters, thieves, stealers. We all have those innate natures in ourselves that happened when we bit that apple. The problem is and this came to another video I watched, which was when Daniel ate the scroll, it tasted sweet, but his belly felt bitter. And I've heard a lot of people give their opinions of that, but it really comes down to when you understand truth, it tastes really good. Then you realize the consequences of the action. So if you understand the truth, you do realize that God has to come and basically destroy the world because we can't control ourselves. And it's only through Christ's blood that we can come back. And the more and more you digest that, especially to a foundational level, the more and more your stomach will turn. And unfortunately, the average person can't take it. Going through prophecy, you can sit back and realize that a lot of these prophets, I mean, it wasn't a pleasant experience. I mean, they went through the ram shot, whether God made a prophet marry a prostitute to show his love, whether he made Daniel go through what Daniel went through. Like, these weren't pleasant experiences, but they were how he revealed his love to us. And going through that, you have to remember, when the final kingdom erupts, and it's literally just funneling through a funnel, if you don't wash yourself in Christ's blood, then it's the law that determines your sheep or goatness. And then, probably from then, I don't know how many people outside of those who Christ deems worthy actually live in New Jerusalem with the Father. I think it's a simple, and the Jews are going to feel shame as soon as this whole process happens. But you have to remember, the pride of self, the worship of self, the worship of one God who's in all control, it's mimicked by three monotheistic faiths. One where Christ reconciles us back, one where the law just carries the Jews back, which the law does not bring you back. The law produced Christ. Christ brings you back. And then there's the Muslim law, and that really focuses on the law. So you have to remember, if you're just looking to adhere to a set of rules and think that that makes you a great person, it doesn't. What makes you a good person is caring about God and caring about your other people. It is what it is. And all consciousness rests on this. And I can't wait until the day where all consciousness rests, where I don't have to look over my shoulder or live by laws. I can sit back and say, I know somebody's not going to steal from me or cheat on my wife or do this, that, and the other, because we're all spirit-led. But that's not today. I'm hoping it'll be tomorrow, right? That's what all Christians are worried about. So, God bless y'all. The law won't bring you back. Christ does. But if your robe isn't washed with Christ, you got to digest what made you not make it. And that's going to be a terrifying thing. And God's great in terms of supplanting his plan so that if you die in Christ's name during the tribulation period, you're back. But don't take that for granted. The problem is when the world collapses and Antichrist comes on stage, he's not going to come as unattractive. He's going to come as very attractive. And you're going to want to follow the system. But at the same standpoint, with all the destruction happening around the world, the wars against people, the various different things happening in terms of earthquakes and famines and pestilences, it's not going to be the easiest thing to overcome. So keep your eyes open, be ready. But God bless y'all. The law ain't bringing you back home. It's only Christ.